This past June, I had the privilege of playing a small role in helping organize the 2026 Health and PE Summit, an amazing PE conference here in Colorado. Our keynote speaker was a student whose name is Lucy. Her speech about her journey as a seated athlete, her experience in PE class, and the teachers who were supporting her along the way was one of the most powerful things I've heard in a long time. Lucy's presentation was so impactful to the 200 or so PE teachers in the audience, I just knew that more teachers needed to hear it. I waited a bit to chat with Lucy, but she was so popular and the line was so long that I didn't get a chance to. But luckily, I was able to catch up with Lucy's mom, Jennifer, and asked if they would be interested in being guests on the podcast, and thank goodness they agreed. A lot of PE teachers listen to this show, and many are nervous about teaching seated athletes or students with diverse physical needs. Lucy is here to change that. In this episode, she shares her story from injury to her return to PE to her advocacy work. More importantly, she's direct about what teachers get right and what every PE teacher should know when it comes to teaching students with diverse needs. This conversation is for the students in your gym who need to feel seen, valued, and taught right alongside their peers. I can't thank Lucy enough for taking time away from her busy summer of camp and hanging out with her friends to chat with me and share her experiences with you all. At the end of this episode, Lucy shares some information from some of her favorite and most impactful organizations that help kids like her continue their journeys in sports and adventures. Distinguished PE is really proud to be able to donate to them on her behalf, and we're encouraging listeners to do so too. Even a small donation can help other kids like Lucy experience things like CrossFit, skiing, rock climbing, and scuba diving. You can find that information in the notes to the episode. It's an honor to be able to share this conversation with you, knowing that it's going to have an impact on thousands of students around the world. And now I bring you Lucy Harris. Lucy, thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful that you agreed to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, Jennifer, Lucy's mom, for being here as well. I really appreciate both of you.
Yeah, we're really honored to be here today. Thanks again for having us.
That moment at the conference when you gave your speech, Lucy, was so powerful. I just had this strong feeling that more PE teachers needed to hear your message. So thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with our listeners. You ready to get started?
Of course, I'm so excited.
Okay, Lucy, I would love for you to share your story with listeners. So please start wherever you're comfortable and share what this journey has been like for you.
Yeah, so before my injury, I played competitive soccer and I was a super active kid. I loved PE class. It was like one of my favorite classes. It was so fun. And then in 2023, I was in a car accident that left me paralyzed from the 2-6 level down. So I have a 2-6 complete spinal cord injury. And I was in the hospital for about 2.5 months. And when I was in the hospital, we were so tuned in on trying to find like a cure or trying to figure out how to fix the problem. But one night I just told my mom, hey, like, I don't want to find a cure. I don't want to do this. I just want to start living my life and just make the best of it that I can. And so that's what we started doing. As soon as I got out of the hospital, I started playing sports again. I started trying new things and just trying to figure out what my life was going to be like again. I got injured in the summer between 4th and 5th grade. So I was going into 5th grade when I got injured. And the first day that I got back into 5th grade, the PE teacher was not 100% prepared, and not because of lack of caring. She cared so much, but just because lack of, what would you say?
Experience and exposure. I mean,
Yeah.
she had never had a kid that needed more significant accommodations. She had never had a student in a wheelchair before, to now not only do I have this kid in a wheelchair, but I have this really super active athletic kid in a wheelchair. And so how do I, continue to push her and hold her to that same level?
That's so relatable for the teachers who are listening because every single PE teacher wants the best for all of their students, but some of them just simply don't know how to take that first step. So that's one of the reasons that I know why them hearing your story is going to be so powerful.
Yeah, thank you. And
Just kind of going back to that time in the hospital, I think it was truly a testament to Lucy's resiliency that, here you have this kid who, 1 month post finding out she's never gonna walk again. She's never gonna be able to do a lot of the things that she really identified as a big part of her identity, and her just being like coming to that acceptance, but also realizing that athlete is still in her and just really, I'm ready to be the athlete that I'm gonna be, whether that's a seated athlete or, a standing athlete. And I think that having that knowledge really early on that she could still do all of the sports and athletics and have that be a part of her identity played a really significant part in her mental health. Just knowing that she wasn't losing this big part of who she was. As her mom, knowing that that's going to take a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of advocating and a lot of teaching her on how to advocate for herself so that people like the PE teacher with the best of intentions can continue to support her in that mental health journey as well.
Lucy, can you share a little bit more about that motivation for advocacy? Like, where did that come from?
So it started on the first day of fifth grade when I had PE, and I got to the PE class and I was so excited because my PE teacher was supposed to have like a adaptive PE mentor, and that didn't end up working out. But I was just thinking like it's okay, like we'll still kind of, figure things out. But I didn't have a lot of exposure at that time. I had a decent amount, but not like a whole lot of exposure to adaptive sports and like exactly how to adapt different things. And so when I got there, she was like, "We're gonna do flag football." And I was like, "Okay, we can try to make that work." Trying stuff in the gym, and we ended up going outside to the field, and we had to go through, how much would you say it was? A lot of,
It was 4-inch deep pea gravel in
yeah.
order to just get to the field itself, which if you've ever tried to push a stroller or ride your bike through pea gravel, that's pretty challenging, but doing it with a wheelchair is 10 times harder.
Yeah, and then the class would go out and they would start playing the game, and she was like, "Okay, here's a football and you can play pass." It was a little like just sad because I was so used to being the one out there, being the one competing, because before my injury I was just, and after my injury I'm so competitive. So it was disappointing because I was like, well, I want to be out there like competing and having fun and playing the game. And so that's mainly where my advocacy came from, I would say. And I think that at first, before I kind of was like, this is where I need to advocate, it was more just, okay, I need to advocate not because of their lack of caring, because so many of the PE teachers, they care, they want the best for their students. They want them to succeed and, be happy and enjoy their class, but they sometimes don't know how to give that to them. So I think that's really important for every kid to feel like they can feel that and have that no matter what disability or whatever limits them.
I would also add that I think you had this unique perspective too of being someone who was considered able-bodied before and then becoming disabled. Of even when you were in the hospital, you were thinking about things like the playground, and you were like, well, great, what am I going to do when I get to the playground? Isn't really accessible. When you started noticing really early on, like the first time I remember that we went to a department store and you were like, the aisles are so narrow and everything's so cluttered and this really isn't accessible. So you kind of started looking at that advocacy piece pretty early on in terms of not just with sports, but that the world and the schools and everything isn't necessarily as accessible to you now that you use a wheelchair as it was when you were considered able-bodied.
Knowing what you know now, being such a strong advocate and having several years of experience advocating not just yourself, but for other students and kids as well, what would it look like if you went back to that first day and your teacher brought you out to the field and the kids were playing flag football? What would you do differently now?
If I could like go back a little bit further, like before that day to like prep, I feel like we needed to have a little bit more of the communication piece going on. And I know that I was so new to my injury and we were like trying to figure everything out. But I feel like if we were to, this is also on our part too, kind of just communicating more, being like, okay, like I did my first session with the adaptive PE coach person, and I was like, this is what happened, this is what we talked about, or letting us know before the day of the lesson to do flag football, how that was all going to work and how she was going to try to figure that out and see if that was going to work for me. And then also, I feel like if we were to get there, if that communication piece happened, then there would have been a few things that definitely could have been prevented. If we wanted to go outside, because it was like a super nice day out that day, we could have gone to the blacktop that was next to the field, or we could have gone inside the gym and just done it in the gym. I think the communication piece was really a big one because it was kind of like we went there and then it was like, oh wow, look at this, we're doing this now. How am I gonna even do this?
When you say communication, communicate with you, right? Because you have some of these answers. One of the things that you advocate for, I remember from your speech, is that you want teachers and other adults or support providers to talk to you to see the types of modifications that you would make and the things that you're capable of. Is that right?
Yeah, for communication, I would say like talk to the student or the student's parents or someone that's really close and connected to the student that can ask the student, hey, is this going to work? Do you feel comfortable doing this? And so, yeah, that's communication like on that side, like asking the student is really important.
Because I would even say you get a little frustrated if people ask me first. If someone,
Yeah.
if they come in there like, how would you accommodate this? And I give a suggestion, you're like, Mom, that's not what I would do at all. It should really be like this. And so you're pretty passionate about asking the individual.
Yeah, I would say first, definitely ask the student because no one knows the most about themselves than the person does. So that's important.
You also, especially now, you advocate for so much in your life that it's really helpful when people come to you with suggestions so that all of the work isn't just put on you to come up and develop the ideas, but for like a teacher to come up and say, here is what I had planned. Here is what I was thinking would be the right accommodations. Does this make sense, or do you have some feedback for me? Because you are just a 13-year-old and it shouldn't be on you to develop the in-depth lesson plans and knowing you have access to great teachers and the teachers have ideas on what they want to target or what they want you to learn. And so that's also really helpful.
Yeah, I think first communicate with the student, but also like something that my PE teachers in middle school really did and helped so much was they asked me to come in before the school year started and they give me a tour of the gym and the fitness lab and everything and kind of came up with some ideas on some of the workouts and some of the activities we're going to be doing, like modifying the equipment and the activities beforehand so we didn't have to, stress about a lot of things like, oh, it's the first day of school. There's like all these new sixth graders who don't even know where they're going, and it's so chaotic here. I think just doing that, then when the teacher was like, okay, now it's time to do the warm up, whatever the warm up was, and I just already knew how to do that. I didn't have to, go ask the teacher, like, okay, now here's this, here's this. It just took up way less time, and I felt like it was way more a part of the class.
So a lot of preparation beforehand and getting familiar with the physical space even before school starts. That seems like it's so beneficial because then you can move around in the gym or in the fitness room and talk about things that might need to be adjusted, right? What are some of the things that you needed to be adjusted as far as the physical space goes? You mentioned how narrow spaces were in department stores. Was it similar things to that?
Kind of. It was more like figuring out how to do the rower machine in the fitness room. And we kind of just figured out that if I sit on the end of the rower, still in my chair, then I can just pull the rower with my arms. Or it was more like doing things like, okay, if we go over to this station and do 20 mountain climbers and 10 burpees, for example, how would we modify that and how would we make it the same workout but just different movements, and how would we target the same areas, like the same muscles and everything, but just maybe with slightly different movements and stuff.
You're making me think about the demonstration that you did in your
Yeah.
keynote speech. And, mom, you said earlier, she's just 13. Sometimes she needs mom to help advocate for her too. But she is a 13-year-old with a keynote speech on her resume, which is pretty incredible.
Agreed.
Would you be able to share a little bit about the activity that you did during your speech?
Yeah, so I had three volunteers come up, and one of them, I let them use my sports wheelchair. So I use that for basketball, and it's great chair. And
It's a special
I
chair, if I remember right, too.
yeah,
It's Team USA basketball chair that
yeah.
has been all around the world and in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool chair.
Yeah, it's amazing. My coach is letting me use it, and yeah, she's amazing. She's been to the Paralympics too, which is amazing. So first we had the two standing athletes and the seated athlete do the exact same workout. We weren't gonna tell the seated athlete like how to modify anything or anything like that. We were just gonna have them try to see what they can figure out on the spot, because sometimes that's what it's like in a PE classroom. We were trying to model that with not giving the seated athlete any like modifications, and then
So holding them to the same expectation of doing
yeah.
running 2 laps, doing like 10 burpees.
And like 30-second line jumps, I think was what it was. The participants were very kind to each other, so it didn't go exactly as planned, but the standing athletes waited for the seated athlete, but that
That
doesn't happen
doesn't
very
always
often.
happen.
So the standing athletes did 2 laps, and the seated athlete just kind of was behind them and trying their best to keep up, but they were slower, obviously. So, and then with the burpees, they weren't 100% sure how to do it, so they kind of just made something up. But they were pretty close to how what the modification was. And then the line jumps, the seated athlete was still behind, so they were like trying to catch up, and yeah, they just didn't know what to do for the line jump, so they kind of just went back and forth in the chair.
Typically, what happens is that the seated athlete falls further behind, that they're kind of left in the dust, that they never get a real good workout, and they feel excluded, right? They see the standing athletes being able to do all these things and finishing super fast. They get a little embarrassed because everyone's just waiting on them to finish. And so it's not a real positive experience for a seated athlete.
Yeah.
And then the general guidance, and this was given to us from Kevin Ogar. He's developed the National Adaptive CrossFit program. And so at the competition level, this is kind of the guidance that is given, is that it's 1/2 for seated athletes. So instead of doing 2 laps, you do 1 lap. Think about cutting things just in half, and that's going to give the same level of endurance and workout to a seated athlete as it does for a standing athlete. So then you had them redo it with the new modifications so you had a seated workout and you had a standing workout. How did that go for the seated athlete the second time?
The second time, I asked the seated athlete afterwards, did you feel more included this time? Did you feel more like you were part of the class, or you didn't have to think twice about, oh, am I doing this right? Am I going to be the one left behind? And they said that they felt part of the class and that they were super happy with how it went. So that's good.
Yeah, the three things that I noticed were that the seated athlete was going through similar physical exertion. Like they were actually getting a pretty good workout from doing the exercise modifications that you shared with them. They all kind of ended at the same time too. And the level of inclusivity, they were all exercising together the second time. Whereas the first time they were kind of trying that, but like as you said, in a real world situation, sometimes that doesn't happen. The second time
Yeah.
it was very obvious that everybody was together and cheering each other on. It was more of a collaborative group effort than it was just, we're going to do our exercises and you go do yours and we'll see you at the end.
Yeah.
I meant to ask you this earlier, but you and your mom have brought up a couple different terms, things like sitting and standing athlete. Are there any terms or phrases that you wish that people just knew more about or used more frequently as opposed to others?
Yeah, I think that it depends so much for everyone because so many different people prefer different types of language and different things like that. So, first and foremost, I would say just ask the student and communication. Those are that's like the main thing here. It's just asking the student because it will just give you so much answers because you're getting it straight from the person who you're adapting for. And I feel like if you ask the student what their preferences are in terms of language and stuff, it's really important. So I prefer person first language, which is look, there's a girl who's in a wheelchair, but some people prefer identity first language, which is look, there's how would you
Well, I would even say that you kind of flip-flop because you would call yourself a seated athlete, which would be
yeah, that's true. I do kind of flip flop between them, but see, it's even I don't even know sometimes, but um yeah.
I think it's just that the focus isn't ever just on the person's disability, but on the person as a whole. So like an outdated term that was used pretty frequently was like wheelchair bound. That just puts the emphasis on the device that she uses over her as a person and being an athlete. So, being a wheelchair bound athlete feels a whole lot different than a seated athlete.
Yeah.
And so really just thinking about how you would want to be talked about or referenced to in general.
Yeah, and think about how you would want to be talked about and stuff. It's personal, right? It's kind of, whatever you want to be called. Listen to them talking about themselves too is something that you can do. So if I were to call myself a seated athlete, which is how I would say that, then, you would be like, okay, let's say you're talking another PE teacher and say, "Oh, I have a seated athlete." Then that would be, I don't know, how would you
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
That's it.
that's good. Yeah.
I know that I get nervous sometimes when I don't know exactly what language to use. And then I think there's another level of that where you feel a little bit nervous to actually ask the person. So I'm really relieved to hear you say, just ask me and I'll tell you what it is that I want to be referred to as. And the underlying value there is to just put the person first. And that is so helpful to me. So person first and ask what you want to be referred to as.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get back to some PE experiences, Lucy. I know that you've had some teachers who have been incredibly supportive and have created an inclusive environment for you. Can you give us a few examples of what those teachers did and some of the modifications that they made for you that were meaningful? If you want
Yeah.
to shout out some of these teachers by name too for doing such an incredible
Oh,
job,
of
feel
course,
free. I
I would
mean,
love
by
to.
all means, yeah.
Um, One of my teachers is Mr. Wilmus. He's amazing. He's the PE teacher. And then Miss Poyer is the fitness and wellness teacher. And they're both amazing. So shout out to them. Yeah, one of them was the rower, which me and Miss Poyer had to figure out how to modify that. So we kind of had to figure out where is going to be the best for me. Mr. Wilmus, rock climbing was a big one because, for obvious reasons, that's complicated for, I mean, a able-bodied person too. But we kind of had to figure that out. So he is a great role model because I used to do rock climbing at a rock climbing gym. And so he actually, one of the times that I was there, he came to the rock climbing gym. He went all the way downtown to the gym and saw how my coach set it all up and did all these things. And he was like, okay, what equipment is there? What do we need? I didn't end up getting onto the wall, but that was just because he's only one person. And I also wanted to learn how to belay because I never had done that before. It's a good alternative because I'm still trying something that I haven't done before in his class, even though I'm not getting up on the wall, which we could have made it work. It just didn't, it didn't work out.
I would also add both of your teachers were a little nervous at first too.
Yeah.
But Mr. Wilmus, when you went and you did the tour of the school, he set a high bar for you. One of the first things he said was, I'm gonna, get you to the top of the rock wall by the time you're in 8th grade. And you just deadpan looked at him and you were like, I can already do that. And he's like, oh, okay. And so he thought that he was already setting a pretty rigorous goal. It's the same rigorous goal that he sets for any of his students. And knowing that she could already do that, he was like, I need to figure out how to raise the bar. And I think he's worked hard to do that. And then Miss Poyer, she reached out to me and she was like, my goodness, I just got this amazing new fitness lab with all of this new equipment, and I have no idea how to make this work. And so I went into the school and she was really willing to work with, again, Kevin Olgar, to work with the two of us on how do we make the modifications to this equipment. But I would also say, didn't they do like sit volleyball?
Yeah, so this was amazing. Miss Boyer, 5 stars to her. Bravo. So we did a volleyball unit and I was kind of struggling just because of my injury level. I don't have a lot of like core strength. And so it was hard for me to get my hands all the way like out in front of me to hit the ball with enough force to get it over the net, even though I could spike it pretty well, but also the net was just really tall. I was too short to get over the net most of the time. And so we were kind of doing some drills and I was trying to, get the movement of just like bumping the ball and spiking it and whatnot and, passing it and stuff. And so we kind of worked on that for a little while. I had like a group that I was with and we kind of worked on passing and all that stuff. And then at the end, we did a kind of a bunch of tournament style like games. And Miss Poyer had a group because there was 3 nets in the gym that we played on, and one of the nets she lowered, so it was like, I want to say the top of the net was like 2 or 3 feet off from the ground, and then the bottom of the net was like a couple inches off the ground. And I actually brought my sports chair to the school. I was in my chair and the students were on scooters, and then we played with like I think it might have been a lighter ball. It was just like a volleyball game, but everyone was it was more equal that way. And so that was really fun. And I actually had a lot of fun doing that. It was really fun. So
That's
yeah.
a great example of a modification. You had mentioned also during your speech classmates being in chairs for certain activities. So was an example of scooters, right? Students being on scooters. Was there another time where your classmates got to experience being in a wheelchair as well?
So it was 5th grade field day. And so I was super excited for it because Kevin Ogar and one of his friends.
I was a nurse from Craig Hospital. Craig Hospital is one of the top rehab spinal cord injury hospitals in the nation, and it's located here in Denver. And so they provide a lot of really great support. But Kevin was able to talk to some of the staff there to borrow a few wheelchairs.
And we got them to get a couple of my friends to get in the chair for field day, and I got to compete with them in the chair. And so I have a couple fun pictures from that. But yeah, it was really fun. So I think obviously I can't not be in a chair, but you can get other kids to try out and feel what it's going to be like to be in a chair so that we can be equal.
I think that a lot of students have some misconceptions. And so by having them experience what it's like to be an athlete in a chair, they were like, oh my goodness, this is really hard.
Yeah.
Because you also had that experience when you played sled hockey. So 4 months post-injury, Lucy played sled hockey with the Colorado Avalanche sled hockey team. And they set up a tournament with an able-bodied hockey team, but they put the able-bodied kids in sleds.
This was
And
hilarious.
they're like a very elite hockey
This
team.
was so funny. This was like the first game that I played. And so I was like excited but also nervous for it. And when I got on the ice, it was so funny because we heard them going into their locker room before the game and they're like, oh yeah, like sled hockey is gonna be so easy. Like it doesn't even look that hard. You don't even have to skate around, all that stuff. They were being so cocky about it. And then when they got on the ice, they're like, I can't even move. What do I do?
Their coaches had to go out and push them in their sleds.
Oh my goodness. That's hilarious. Lucy, you gave a really funny description of sled hockey during your speech. Do you remember that, what you said?
Yeah, I said it's people skating around on big ice skates with 2 hockey sticks with ice picks on the end of them. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty epic sport, to say the least.
Yeah. I watched a lot of the highlights to those games during the Olympics. It was incredible.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to watch.
You've got an amazing audience of super reflective PE teachers that listen to the show, just like the ones who were at the summit that you spoke at. You've already shared so much great information with them, but what is like the most important thing that you want them to know or to understand?
Yeah, I think that just over everything, like we're still people. Just ask us and communicate with us about different things that you can do and what different things that I can do to help figure things out. I'm still your student and you're still my teacher. I'm not a mascot, I'm not a manager. I'm just a person. I'm one of your students and I'm just excited to be in your class, and so I feel all PE teachers to just be happy that they should have anyone in a class that can just give them this experience.
One of the things that you touch upon is that you deserve to have the same education as an able-bodied student. I'm a special education teacher as well, and I think one of the things that we do a lot is we put a lot on the paraprofessionals and on the special education teachers and on the adaptive PE teachers to kind of take ownership over students, whereas we want you to take that ownership and use us as resources, use us as the people that can help supplement or support what you are doing.
I've got a few quick questions that I think I'll ask you just at the end here. But first, I want to talk about some of the organizations that are doing incredible work for seated athletes. So, can you share a few of those with us? And then we will encourage listeners to support them. Distinguished PE is going to make donations, and I'm going to encourage listeners to do the same thing as well. Please share some of the organizations or initiatives that are impactful and doing great work out there.
So one of them is Wheel Wad, which is Kevin Ogar's like CrossFit. He kind of designed and made the entire thing. He basically created adaptive CrossFit, and he has worked with my PE teachers a lot in helping them figure out different things, helping me figure out different things about how to be more independent and how to advocate. ARCH is a big one. It stands for Adaptive Recreation for Childhood Health, and it's through a children's hospital. That's actually who I went whitewater rafting with yesterday. It was great. And they take kids on different trips and activities. They have a really amazing ski program that I do, and they're great. And the people there are just nice, and they'll help you figure things out. The National Sports Center for the Disabled, NSCD, is also great. They partner a lot with Arch too. So Paradox Sports is another really good one. They are also just an adaptive rock climbing mainly program. That's who I go rock climbing with, and they're who taught Mr. Wilmus and helped him figure all that out for rock climbing. Oh yeah, Adaptive Adventures. They are another adaptive sports program, and they are also wanting to get everyone out and doing all sorts of outdoor sports and stuff. They're amazing. And then Denver Adaptive Divers. So I recently got the opportunity to go scuba diving in the Cayman Islands, and it was through Denver Adaptive Divers. It was amazing. So they're a program that does scuba diving, and they help people who have the whole range of disabilities get back out there and trying to, explore the ocean. And they are so amazing. They're so nice too. Just a great community.
I'm gonna put just one more kind of general plug out there, and that is there's multiple cities that have, or almost in every state that will have a wheelchair basketball team, a sled hockey team. Usually they have like a wheeling rugby team or wheeling lacrosse team. I would really advise you to look at like who's local to your region, because those teams, I can tell you, you will never meet a greater community than the people that are in that community. Our experience has been that they'll go to your school, they'll meet with you, they'll meet with your athletes. They want to be heavily involved in your community. They'll bring the chairs out there to do an adaptive PE basketball game, or they're fantastic. And the
Yeah.
more that we can get connected as a community that way, I think the better as well.
Yeah, and I think that the people in your community, if you reach out to them, they really do care so much, because most of the time they went through something so similar and they want to help and advocate, and they want to assist anyone and everyone who wants that help and that,
Experience.
experience and community. And so I feel like if you reach out, it's a great, like, all of it's a great resource, but that particularly.
I'll make sure that I link all of those organizations in the notes of this episode and encourage folks who listen to go check them out. I wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions. I think you might have answered some of them already. I was thinking about all these different adventures that you've been on, things that I'm afraid to do, by the way. I don't know if I want to go scuba diving or do any rock climbing, but maybe if you were my belay, I'd feel more comfortable doing some rock climbing. So let's talk about that. What are some other adventures that you either have coming up or that you hope to be able to experience?
I'm really looking forward to the coming ski season that I'm doing with NSCD and Arch. They work together to get that going, and it's an amazing program. And I go to Winter Park every year. Last year, I just started on a mono ski. It's like a sit ski with one ski on the bottom. So a bi ski is usually what you start off with, and then mono ski is usually what the people, like the advanced people, use. And even though I'm not great at it, but it's fun. So yeah, it's so fun to just be on the mountain, especially since I'm from Colorado and it's a big thing, and so it's always just so fun. Then hopefully eventually in the future going to the Paralympics, that's like one of my goals, because I mean before my injury, going to the Olympics was, oh, that'd be cool, but like it wasn't like a goal. But now it's, since after my injury and seeing how it can affect so many people on the great community around it, now it's like a goal now. It's I want to get to that point. And so I don't know in what sport yet, but
You and I are on the same page because that was the next question I was going to ask you. What are your favorite Paralympic sports or events?
I think right now it's probably wheelchair basketball, skiing, and probably track and field.
She just got a sweet new racing chair donated
Yeah.
to her, so she's been starting to train with a former Paralympian who is training her to. Earlier this week, she just went out and did 3 miles like it was nothing.
Wow. Okay, last question then. Let's bring it back to PE for just a moment. What are your favorite sports that you currently play? And think about like ones that you would play in PE maybe. If a PE teacher is listening and they just want to know what Lucy's favorite PE activities or games are, what are they?
Sharks and Minnows is fun. It's always fun because it's like a game that doesn't need a lot of, at least for me, a lot of modifications. Yeah.
You like anywhere you have to guard a cone?
Oh yeah, that I'm so good at guarding stuff because I can just roll on top of it so that it's underneath my chair, and then no one's knocking that cone down.
You found the cheat code, huh?
Yep. We did scoop ball in PE this year, and that was really fun actually, because for half the time I was the goalie and my teammates were like, "Oh yeah, you're the best goalie ever." It was funny. But and then when I was out, like playing not goalie, it was fun because you don't have to like kick a ball or anything. It's not like I would have to like have some big modification. It's just like you have the little scoop ball, like,
That those like plastic scoops?
yeah, like the scooper thing, and then the like wiffle ball. And so it's like fun because it doesn't need too many modifications for me. So it was just easy to play and it was fun. And so in 5th grade, that's another example of one of the modifications that my 5th grade PE teacher did. Was we were playing kickball. She brought out like a baseball bat. And so the pitcher would just roll the ball the same as they would for anyone. But instead of kicking it, I swung the bat like almost like a golf club, but similar, I would say, kind of. And then I kind of moved way slower than everyone through the grass to get to the next base, but it worked out. Yeah, and it was still really fun actually.
Lucy, I just want to thank you again so much for sharing your story with us today. The things that you talked about here, like being a student first, teachers actually teaching you what inclusive and rigorous PE looks like. PE teachers from all around the world are going to hear that, and your message is going to influence how they think about their responsibility to all of their students. So I really appreciate you taking the time to make this episode and this great resource for teachers today. And I know that all the teachers who listen and the students that they teach are going to be really grateful that you did this. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.